Thank you guys once again for tuning in to the TTE's newest production, Turning for Home. I'm your host, Andrew Calvano, and what we're doing every week is bringing on new guys from the sport, top handicappers, guys who have a big influence on the game, pick their brains, pick some winners, and just try to do it on a weekly basis. This week, we have one of the best New York handicappers I know, and Steven Schwartz. You can find him on Twitter at Al Bundy Poke High. Steve, you and I always seem to land on the same exact horses, and we've only known each other for a couple of years, but I think this show tonight is really going to show how we handicap the races and see how we land on some similar horses here. So, Steve, thanks for coming on tonight.
No, the pleasure's all mine, and it is funny. We've definitely been talking, going back and forth about Naira for probably a good year now, and we always seem to land on very similar horses, but we've always wanted to kind of figure out, get inside each other's heads and see how we come up with those horses. So it should be a fun time tonight.
For sure. And Steve, I've seen him time and time again at the Belmont Stakes with his father, just some great guys for the sport. So we're going to have some fun tonight. So, Steve, without further ado, we're going to dive into this late pick 4 Saturday for June 24th at Belmont Park. All 4 races on the turf. There is some rain in the forecast. However, it looks like it's kind of going to be overnight Friday and the Saturday. So I don't think we'll get washed off here. We may have some wet turf, but hopefully we do stay on because I could see this pick 4 paying a big amount of money here. You got a pick 4 ticket. I got a pick 4 ticket, and we'll break into one another's. Like I said, I don't have a single in this sequence here. So, hopefully if we hit it, we hit it for some big money. So let's start off here. Race 7 to kick off the big 4. It's a $64,000 allowance spread for state breds going 1 1/8 on the inner turf course here. The favorite to start us off here is number 1, LNZ from Mark Cassie and Javier Castellano. Steve, what do you make of this one? Do you think this one is a single to start off? Do you want to go deep here? What do you think of race 7?
There's a play against for me. I'm not really sure I buy his last race where he was pretty much able to just set the speed and wire the field. I think you have other competition in here that could definitely give him a run for his money. Do I want him to knock me out of the pick 4? I'm not sure, but is he going to be my top pick at what is going to be a short price? Not for me.
For sure. Now, obviously, you touched on how this one took control of a no-speed race from the inside last time out. Do you see anybody running with him today?
I think River Knight, especially with the Carlo on the mount, is definitely going to go for that lead. If he doesn't even get the lead by being on the outside, he's definitely going to push the one. There are other horses I like in here that should be sitting a beautiful trip. I know we were joking about at the Belmont Stakes that we're suckers for Jose Lezcano on the outside on the turf.
Sure.
And I'm looking at that horse, at the 6th horse. I really believe that this race can go through him if the one doesn't get that lead and actually has to push for it. If Castellano decides to give the lead to the 7, I don't know what this horse can do from behind. We've only seen this horse win on the lead. I want to look elsewhere.
Go ahead and give us your top selection for race 7, Steve.
Yeah, top selection is definitely Lezcano on the 6. I am going to put him on top. I'm actually possibly single him on a few of my pick 4 tickets. An A for those that play the ABC tickets. I will have the 10, Clutch Cargo, underneath. He's actually my second choice. I really like the jockey upgrade going to Ortiz from Arojo. And if you really look at his last race on paper, doesn't look so great, but he really closed nicely into that slow pace. I think he has a little more pace today. That should set a nice winning kick for him. And I also want to throw in the 9. I don't want Velasquez runs consistently. He's been the money 3 times at this track. For me, it looks like 6, 10, 9 to start off the pick 4.
So you're kind of deep here. This is actually going to be my spread race of the pick 4. I'm actually 7 deep in this spot here. I feel strong about some big price horses later, but I really want to get out of the first race here, and I'll jump into my first top pick here, and that's number 4, Voodoo Song for Mike Hushin and Manny Franco. Second off the layoff here. Mike Hushin is 20% second off the layoff with turf runners at Belmont Park. In 4 for 8 in the past 2 years, going dirt to turf and sprint the route. And I think this one can really pick it up together here. This one has a lot of tactical speed. And I know you mentioned with the one and River Knight, who was always on the front end, regardless of what surface. I think this one sits a perfect trip right behind them and has first run at the leaders. You're going to get a big price here. That's 12-1. If you look back, this one's second start on turf, going a mile, one in hand with Dylan Davis was the morning line favorite that day, and won as such back on November 5th. He tried to get out going on the 6 furlong turf and debut back in October, but was washed out and finished second to LeCat Warrior, who was a main track entry that day. And Steve, we see time and time again at Belmont Park, these main track only entries who get in off these washed off turf events. I mean, they must be clicking at above 50% or something like that. So I like this one's, earlier 2-year-old career. Obviously some excuses down the road, wasn't too, big on his last out, but I think getting back to the turf is what's going to make this one a runner again, and hopefully at a big price.
Does it concern you, and I actually looked at the horse, does it concern you that Hushin, who's really no more as a turf guy than a dirt guy, didn't put him back on the turf after that impressive win?
Yeah, and that's my thing here. I think when they hit the 3-year-old career, after that Damien running, obviously they had some confidence in this one. Now, this one didn't run too well there. So I think they wanted to get him back into the allowance race, see what he could do. I think, after that April 7th, off that long layoff at Aqueduct, that next start should have been turf. But then again, it's a trainer's game, and Mike Husher knows a lot more than me. I'm just excited to see this one back on the turf. But I think, like the point you just made, Steve, I think this one is the reason why this one warrants a 12-1 morning line, because you don't know if this one's going to run back to that second career start as a 2-year-old. So that's going to be my top selection. And I'll just go on and I'll rally out here who I'm also going to include. Like you said, number 1, LNZ. Don't want this one to beat me. I think this one will be pressured from the inside. But I have to include here because I don't want to get knocked out too early. I think the 2, Man of Wiregrass, for Mike Maker, who scratched out on Thursday to run in this spot. I think this one can do it, sitting right off the layoff. Not necessarily do I think this one can win, but I think this one's early and tactical speed will put him in a position, and it's all about placement on the turf here. Like I said, number 4, Voodoo Song. I'm with you on the 6, Inherit the Wind for Jose Lezcano and Mark Cassie. That one's going to be included as well. And then I'll use 3 runners on the outside. That's number 8, Nuts for Bolts, who has run 2 back-to-back great turf starts behind War Bond, a next out winner, and Black Tide for Linda Rice, another next out winner. Vintage Matters, the 9, like you mentioned as well, for Johnny V and Mike Dickinson, second off the layoff. And I'm going to try to get the 10 involved as well, Clutch Cargo. This is Mike Hushin's other horse who has been running consistently on turf. So hopefully we get a double-digit priced horse with Mike Hushin here, gearing up for the Saratoga Summer Meet. But we'll see here. So like I said, Steve, I'm 7 deep. Steve, give us, once again, your selections to start off this pick 4.
I'm hoping to beat the favorite. I'm going to try to get out of the first leg because I want to go deep later. So it's really about ticket structure for me. For those conservative players, I'm going to go in 6, 9, 10. If you had to throw the 1 and the 4 in as your more aggressive player, I can't blame you because, again, you don't want to get knocked out of first leg into a pick 4 that I think we both agree is going to have a good chance to pay here.
For sure. So let's waste no time. Let's move on to the 8th race here. And this is the feature of the day. It's the Wild Applause, the 4th running, a mile on the Widener turf for 3-year-old fillies. And we see Ruben Linda, Frankel's first U.S. winner, coming back here for Chad Brown. Now, I watched the replay on this one, and I believe this one was 6-1 morning line or something like that day, and just got pounded for the start here. If you watch this one's replay and you watch this one turning for home, you can make this horse 99-1. I mean, he was so far back and had to face so much traffic, but once he got loose, this horse exploded and crushed the field by 3 1/4. So this one's going to stretch out today, and that's your favorite 8-5. Steve, what do you make of this one?
So I'm a big replay guy. I love watching replays. I probably watched this replay a good 6, 7 times, and it wasn't for handicapping purposes. It was just to visually watch this impressive run. You mentioned it's really the first North American prodigy of Frankel. But this horse's turn of foot, I thought of Winter Memories. I know we've had conversations about horses we loved in the past. When I saw this run, I thought of that horse, Winter Memories. That quick turn of foot. Tried to find a horse in this that can beat him. I think it's possible to beat him, but this is going to be my single because I want to go deep in the other races. I think this is a future star. I think this is could be her breaking out party here. So for me, visually impressive. I was just really taken back to the point where I had to watch the replay over and over and over. And we mentioned the rain that may come. I think this race will still be in the turf, but if the rain comes, obviously being from Frankel, first race was on a little bit of a softer green. If there is a little precipitation, I think it only helps this horse. And the reason I'm also singling is because in the pick 4, I'm going to put a $27 bet on this pick 4. If I put a $27 win bet on this horse, I'm getting back even money. I'm hoping to put a $27 bet to single this horse in the pick 4 and maybe get back 100 to 1 on my money.
And there's nothing better like that for sure. And I'm with you on this one. I think this one's going to be very tough to beat. Obviously, I'm going to throw in a couple tickets. I think, like you mentioned, if the turf, is listed as good or yielding, which I hope it's not, because that means we'll knock out a couple more turf races. I think this one becomes even more of a single. No one else in this field has really proven to run on soft turf, and I think this one is just so much more of an advantage. Like you said, coming from Frankel and the Dam side, who raced on a lot of soft turf in Ireland herself, definitely could be a single on some other tickets here. And I'm with you. This one's definitely the horse to beat here. I'm going to go too deep here just for protection, just in case this one doesn't like to stretch out or, is having trouble facing winners for the first time. I just want to protect myself here. So I'll add one other horse, and that's number 2, Lowell, for Christophe Clement, who's been heating up, getting geared up for the Saratoga start. And he's got Irad Ortiz to come back and ride this one for the first time, actually. This one placed it in a grade 3 down at Keeneland in October, ran a very good 4th behind New Money Honey in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Turf, did it on the front end. I think this one is the quickest in the group, and obviously, like from watching so many NYRA races on the turf, speed is really what makes these turf races. A lot of guys let these jockeys go out to the front end, set soft fractions, and they have a hard time chasing them down. So I'm going to hope that's the case. With me going too deep in this sequence here. So I'm going to hope Lola just gets right out of the gate and tries to take him all the way before Ruba Linda comes and runs him down. This one lost by a nose and the source softly last time out over this track. So I think if you want to go a little deeper, I'm not too convinced with anybody else here. So I think obviously the logical, as they are the 2 morning line favorites, I think the 2 is a good backup here, but I'm in agreement with you here. I think Ruba Linda is 1,000% the horse to beat, and obviously a strong single as we go deeper into this pick 4.
And I'm glad you brought up Lowell, because I was going back and forth on singling Ruba Linda. Lowell scares me. I will have Lowell on some backup tickets. Coming out of that last race, you mentioned the $100,000 stake that she's coming out of. There was a horse who finished 4th that race, Conde Partito, who's actually owned by Jacob Tammy, the old Colts tight end. That horse just won at Royal Ascot a couple days ago. So if the horse is coming out of that race winning a Royal Ascot, you have to respect Lowell. If you look back at the past races, when he last went from a 7 furlong race to now a routing race, that was one of his best races in the grade 3. He's doing that exact same pattern this time around. This horse scares me. I think if you want to be safe, you can get out of this race going on in too deep. I'm going to try to single Ruba Linda, but I know if I'm out after this race, it's because Lowell beat me.
For sure. And that's why I'm going to use some protection here. Like I mentioned, I really don't see anybody else. The one coming in for Brad Cox is working out very strong and just won an optional 30 out there in Indiana Grand. But as much as I respect Brad Cox, especially when he comes over to New York, I just don't think this one's ready to face the 2 horses that we've mentioned. The 3, Bellavase for Jimmy Toner. Obviously, this is the time of year where Jimmy Toner is getting set for Saratoga, but he wanted to get this one more start at Belmont before shipping up to the Spa. I respect this one, but I think he's going to be a little too far off it today, and I'm not sure how that will help him out. The 4, Super Marina, not much there, and then the Kieran horse, the number 5, not too much there. So I think, obviously, you can get out of here with the 2 favorites. I don't think this is a spread race by any means. Whether you want to single Ruba Linda or get some protection by adding Lowell, I think you can make it out of this one.
Let's go to the 9th.
So let's move on to the 9th race here. Optional $62,000 mile and a quarter on the inner turf course here. And this is a loaded field. We got a lot of horses in here with some also eligibles as well. This is where I'm actually to cut down my ticket a little bit here. But let's get into the favorite, and the favorite is number 7, Call Provision, for Chad Brown and Irad Ortiz, coming off that long layoff, a winner of 2 in a row here at a lemon drop kid for Clairvich Stables. Steve, what do you make of this one?
I think it's to be. It's a very deep field. It's a race that I kind of spread, and it's actually one of the reasons we talk about when we talk about ticket structure. I singled the previous race so I could go deep in the next 2 legs. I think he's the horse to beat. The layoff doesn't concern me as much because it's Chad Brown. He's been known, especially coming off his 3-year campaign, to give him some rest to get ready for a 4-year campaign. What I did notice also last time is it was an impressive race because he was able to close into that slow pace. I think although he's 4 years old, I think he's actually a lot more mature than some of the other 4-year-olds running this race. It is a spread race for me. One horse that really piqued my interest, if we really want to talk prices, I have no idea. And you just mentioned previously how in Naira you can have horses and jockeys really set a slow pace. I have no idea who's going with the 6 here. And I'm not the biggest Arojo lover, but for the life of me, you look at his past races. His big wins have been when he's been able to set a very moderate pace, and I can't find a single horse that will be with him for the first half mile. He's definitely someone I want to target. We have the other Chad Brown horse. I'm curious as to, since we have 2 Chad Browns, is there one that you're kind of favoring either way?
Yeah, and for sure, and that's actually gonna be my top pick. I'm on the other Chad Brown here. I'm on Converge. I think this one is ready to rock and roll. Chad Brown is 36%, second off the layoff with turf routers and optional claimers with Castellano aboard. And I think this one sets up, we talked about it on last week's show with Mark DiLorenzo, Paul Pompa, and the great work he does finding horses for the New York circuit and giving them to Chad Brown. I think he has a special one here. If you look, this one also closed very well last time out into a moderately slow pace and just got up in the nick of time to win by a head. That was off a very long layoff. Like you mentioned with the 7, Call Provision, this isn't too eye-wide opening because Chad Brown just wins consistently off the layoff. But I thought that one was very impressive. If you go back into this one's 3-year-old career, this one was racing exclusively at Grade 3, Grade 2 company before going to his last race at Saratoga, an optional 40, in which he finished in a 3-way photo and got 3rd there. I think this one holds a class edge over Call Provision. Now, I guess if we're comparing the 2 horses, I mean, it's tough to really distinguish, but I'll take the class edge on this one. This one has already shown that he can win as a 4-year-old here, and that's why I think he's just the fresher of the Chad Brown horses. So Converge, for those reasons, is going to be my top selection here.
No, definitely a solid selection. Would it surprise anybody if Chad Brown runs 1-2 here?
Exactly.
That's pretty much what he does in every turf race, it feels like. My question is, and I'm a little concerned, is we talked about trainer placement here. In Grade 3 races last year, it seems like he's taking his time with both of these 2 horses who obviously have a lot of talent, and that's kind of why I spread here. We mentioned Infinite Wisdom, the 6 horse. I feel this horse could be alone in the lead. I don't know how far he could be able to take him, but I know coming around that turn, he should be in the lead. If he can hold on, I don't know. I want to take a shot. Another big price that I really want to look at is the 2 horse at 20-1. You can pretty much cross off just about every single race that he's run because most of it's been on the dirt. Last time out is really going first off the claim for Michael Maker. We know he does an unbelievable job taking horses from dirt to turf. Now he's getting this horse back. Second time off the turf. First time was able to send him to the lead. I think that was really a prep race. I think this is really the race that he wants to run him in. At 20-1 with Ortiz, do I want to get knocked out by a $40 horse? Absolutely not. Again, Chad Brown, would it surprise him they run 1-2? No. But I think this is going to pay. I want to take a couple shots in this race. Another horse that caught my eye. What do you think about the 9 with Velasquez and Pletcher? I don't know what to do with this horse. He obviously has some back class. I don't know if he wants to be on synthetic, if it's turf, but he's another horse that obviously has some talent here. I don't want to get knocked out in this race, especially if I'm alive after hitting my single.
Yeah, for sure. And, I didn't know what to make of this one either. Rarely do you see Todd Pletcher, going to Woodbine, albeit it was a Grade 2 race. Obviously, there were reasons to go. I'm not sure this one took to the synthetic that well, but I think there were other spots around that May 20th time where he could have put him in if he really wanted to put him in some sort of stakes race. There were plenty of options around here. So I think the fact that he had to go up there and couldn't win, and I mean, we know Todd Pletcher is not one of the best synthetic trainers in the game. I mean, Todd Pletcher is the best trainer in the game, in my opinion, but we don't see him win too much on synthetic. And to me,
and he's not
it's
doing well in Belmont at all. This Belmont meet.
Exactly. And I mean, we look at other trainers. If you look at Bob Baffert, I mean, he'll say it himself, I'm not a turf trainer. And Todd Pletcher is obviously not the turf trainer that Chad Brown is. And though Chad Brown is getting much better on the dirt at this time, he's not the dirt trainer that Todd Pletcher is. So I think it was very confusing to me why this horse had to run on synthetic when there were other options for turf races here. The fact that this one didn't win that race, it's just a little concerning for me, but how could you throw out 8-1 Johnny V and Todd Pletcher? I mean, when they click at near 30%. But this is, like I said, I'm skimming down here in my ticket. In a ticket in which if I was to single Rubelinda in the race earlier, I would feel obligated to add this horse based on connections alone. Going back to the 2 horse that you mentioned, Mike Maker, that race going from 6 furlongs to 1.5 miles on turf. I don't think this one obviously wanted that distance, but took the field pretty far on the front end, so the cutback should be greatly appreciated here. And, I talked time and time again on this race. Sure, that horse finished 8th of 10th that day. Only 3.5 lengths off the front end, and I think that says a lot. The other Maker horse that I find interesting is the number 5, Altar Boy. Have to go back a while, actually, to December 30th of 2016 for this one's last win. This one's going to be coming from the clouds, but if this is a spread race for anybody out there, I would recommend throwing this horse on your ticket. Mike Maker and 3 Diamonds Farms, one of the best trainer-owner combinations in the game. I would definitely include that one. But like I said, this is where I'm going to be skinning down my ticket because I did go too deep last out. I went deep in the first race here. So I'm just going to use number 8, Converge. I think this one is more ready. Of the Chad Brown horses, I think this one has a class edge, has Castellano. I mentioned the big 36% angle for all things I would be clicking here for Chad Brown in this race. And I'm going to add one other horse, and that's number 12, Geo's Calling for Brian Lynch. Now, obviously, you touched on the 6 for Brian Lynch, and I agree with you. I don't really see anybody else going with this 6. That kind of says to me, could this be a rabbit horse for Brian Lynch, for Jim and Susan Hill, who team up all the time and put a lot of investments in for Brian Lynch? Could that one be a rabbit for this one who's going to be closing off the pace? I'm not sure. Obviously, that will benefit me greatly because the 10 will probably soar up to 15-1. But just to go back off this one a little bit, has improved as a 4-year-old, won off a very long layoff last time out. That was 2 back in Keeneland, and we know that spring Keeneland meet is one of the best meets in horse racing. Broke poor in the last start, spotted the field about 10 lengths. That was a speed-biased turf course that day as well, and this one rallied. Like I said, spotting the field, 10 lengths was at the half mile, was posted 11 lengths back, still posted a 91 buyer. And I mean, if we're looking at the buyers alone, that's higher than my own horse Converge, who posted an 88 last time out, and that is the same as Call Provision's last time out. Now, obviously, Chad Brown and Brian Lynch and the horses themselves are 2 different horses here. But I think if this one is, going to start off the 4-year-old campaign and keep on improving, I think this one's one to watch for, and even going into the Saratoga meet. So I'm going to go too deep here. I'm going to use number 8, Converge for Chad Brown, and number 12, Geo's Calling. Steve, do you see anybody else that you want to add to this ticket other than Call Provision, like you mentioned? I know you said you were going deep here.
Right. So, on my conservative ticket, I really stuck with 6, 7, 8. I really think that Chad Brown holds the cards here. I put the 6 in because, again, like we've seen on Naira, they're very capable of wiring the field. Is he a rabbit? He quite possibly could be a rabbit. He may even be good enough. But again, we've seen so many times on the circuit, horse goes to the lead, they leave him alone, and sometimes these horses get brave enough and actually want to win a race once in a while. If you had to go deeper, again, I definitely don't want to ignore Jose Ortiz, Mike Maker, second time on the turf at a 20-1. You could throw the 2 in, and again, we mentioned Pletcher. I'm not crazy about the horse, but I don't want to knock me out. I could also use the 9 as well. My main tickets are going to be 6, 7, 8, but again, I could see 2 and 9 as well.
Awesome, and like I mentioned, I'll throw in another horse there for players that want to go deeper, and that's number 5, Altar Boy. He's going to be coming off from very far away. but still, I think this one, cutting back from that 1.5 to 1.25 miles here, can definitely do something for Maker, and Maker is a genius when it comes to NYRA turf races. Steve, let's move on here. Let's go into the closing leg of the pick 4. Hopefully, we're alive for some money. Before we get into this race, Steve, I'll allow you to take the floor. I know how much you love these maiden claimers on the turf. Why don't you tell us about some angles that you always try to look for in getting the big prices here?
So I've always written about this phrase, and the reason I write about these maiden claimers on turf is because, frankly, a few years ago, they knocked me out of way too many big pick 5 and pick 4 tickets that I actually did a lot of research on this type of race. Going back the last 3 years in all NYRA, Aqueduct, Belmont, and Saratoga, the average winner in this type of race is $22. That means the average winner in these type of races is a 10-to-1 shot. Why? Well, if they're in a $40,000 maiden claimer on turf, it's usually for a few reasons. One, because they're not good to be in the maiden special weight, and the trainers know they need to try something different. A lot of times you'll see horses just on dirt, and it's not working on dirt. They want to try something different. They put them on turf, and before you know it, boom, they actually found something special in the horse. This is a race where, frankly, if a trainer can find any way to improve a horse just a little bit, there's never any standouts here. I've had a lot of success in it, not because I've been able to single one horse and put them on top and cash big, because if you're a pick 4, pick 5 player like myself, this is the type of race to spread. These are the type of races where you really could turn a pick 4, pick 5 ticket into an IRS ticket, to be quite honest. I've gone very deep in this race, but I really want to highlight one horse. I know we mentioned on Twitter there was a 15-to-1 shot that I absolutely love in this race. We were laughing about it because the minute you saw that tweet, like usual, we matched up on the same horse. I really want to point to number 7 with Luis Saez, Michael Maker, 15-to-1 morning line. I'm not sure if he'll be 15-to-1 morning when it goes off, but in the pick 4, if we're live in this pick 4, you know what? He'll pay 15-21 in the pick 4.
For sure.
I know we spoke about it a little bit earlier. Maybe you want to talk about why you like it. I can kind of piggyback off that.
Yeah, for sure. And I just want to mention the favorite here real quick, and that's number 10, Bats Cleanup for Dylan Davis and Gary Siaka here. And I understand this one, obviously dropping from maiden special weight to maiden claim. It's the biggest drop in class in our sport here. I'm a big fan of Dylan Davis, and Dylan Davis has been riding lights out for the past 2 weeks here. I believe
very underrated.
A very underrated jockey. I believe his record is something about 8 for 30 in his last 30 races. I know he had a winner on the card today at a big price, but that's my thing. I like Dylan Davis. I think he's a great value jockey, but in a race like this, where his best work, in my opinion, does not come on the turf, I just cannot agree on the 3-to-1 morning line price. And to piggyback what you said in regard to these maiden claiming races on turf, and if I can, in a pick 5 or a pick 4, whatever it is, I will try to skinny down my ticket early so that I can be alive to all horses in these types of races. And I mentioned that last week with Mark DiLorenzo. Like you said, a $22 average winner. So you got to find these big prices here. So that's my thoughts on the 10 horse, the favorite in this race. But like you mentioned, we're on the same horse here as our top selection, number 7, Kierland, and you can piggyback off me here, but I'll just point out a couple things. Maker and Carmouche, they click at around 15%, but the ROI is there. Mike Maker himself, 21% with second career start maidens on turf, getting blinkers for the first time with a high ROI. I think that one is and I use DRF Formulator a lot, and I find in these types of races, it really helps me, find trainer angles and see where I can make a price. And the good thing about Formulator as well is within a click of a button, you get to see some awesome pedigree of horses. And I think that's very important in maiden races such as this. So with that being said, from a pedigree angle, this one's a half to Songsational, who was a multiple stakes placed runner on the turf, broke her maiden in the debut, and then went on to win her next start in an allowance race. So I definitely think the pedigree is there for this one. Definitely needed the debut last time out. It was making up some ground late, but seemed to flatten out there in the stretch. So I want to give this one another chance here. Getting to Luis Saez from Kendrick Carmouche. a strong 4 furlong workout there. I know this one was 22 to 79th, but if you actually click on the workout reports, you can see a lot of horses were in that area. And I'm very fine with a 48 and 4 furlong drill before getting into this spot here. And if you look, that was 2 seconds quicker exactly from the previous workout before the debut on May 22nd here. So I think there's a lot of reasons to point to R7 here, and hopefully we can get a big price. Steve, I'm sure you want to mention a few other things that I may have missed, so go ahead.
Yeah, so, and I'm actually a big Kendrick Carmouche fan. I think similar to Dylan Davis, he's one of the most underrated riders in NYRA. He's one of the few actually aggressive riders in NYRA, but I really love the jockey switch to Luis Saez. I think he's a much better turf rider than most people give him credit for. The addition of blinkers, you mentioned all the DRF formulator stats. This is one of Maker's go-to moves. He put him in a $40,000 claimer last race because you know what? He knew he wasn't going to get claimed in that race. It was an opportunity to basically be a prep race, and I think this is really the shot where you're going to see the best run for him. A lot of horses come out of that same race. You have the Captain Kit, the one, the Mister. You're going to get the price today. This is the day you want to get him for. Right now he's 15-1 based off of that first run. That was not his race. I'm looking at this. I'm looking at his bloodlines. I'm looking at the connections. He's run right up the track and not do anything. But do I want this horse to cost me a big ticket on pick four? Absolutely not. When we think about maiden claimers on turf, these are the things that we look for, because when we get those 10, 15-1 just that come in, and we always go back and figure, what did I miss? What did I miss? This is the type of horse that has a chance to improve. And in a race like this, if you improve a little bit, you may be far above everyone else. You mentioned, the 3-1 shot bats cleanup. He was 25-1 last time. Before that, he was 40-1 last time. I want to take 3-1 on this horse now just because he's dropping. We mentioned before, we love Liscano routing on the turf, especially on the outside, with Mr. Messina on the 11. But again, what has this horse really done, especially on turf, that's going to make me back this horse on top? Am I going to include him in the pick four? Absolutely, because I want to make sure that I cash. If I'm alive in this leg, I want to go deep in this leg, but I'm not expecting to be alive in this race and cash a ticket with one of the chalks coming in. I'm really looking for a couple prices because, again, the history says that this is where you're going to get your price. I really feel if you lined the 7 up with some of the chalk and you only gave me one option, I'm actually going to take the 15-1 shot over the chalk in this case.
For sure. And we going back on Bats Cleanup and Mr. Messina, I will not be including Bats Cleanup here. I'm only 3 deep, I believe, in this race here. And I believe I have a $42 ticket right here. I'm not going to include Bats Cleanup. I will include Mr. Messina, however, and I'll break into that horse a little bit more. But like you mentioned, for Bats Cleanup, 40-1, 25-1, understandable, the big drop. Gary Siaka has not been having a good meet, running at 7%, 3 for 42. And even, Bill Mott, who's been running in bunches here, that's where most of his wins have come from, where it's like 2 in 2 days, back and forth like that. He really hasn't been spotting, like win here, win here, win here. They've all been bunched together. And he did well over the last weekend. So maybe this one's ready to run as well. But Bill Mott, once again, only clicking at 9%. He's 5 for 58. When do you ever see Bill Mott clicking at those numbers, going into the Saratoga meet? You expect him to be one of the top trainers that's going to keep on rolling. So I think now, obviously, both these horses, making that big jump from maiden specialty to maiden claiming should be respectable here. But if we're looking at connections alone, I think that's even more of a telltale sign, to look for a price here, because this is the race where you can earn it. Some other horses that are interesting to me, like I said, I'm 3 deep, but if you have the budget, a few others I would include. Dooley, David Donk on the break, another guy who's 3 for 53, but you're getting 15-1 on this one. First time Lasix, blinkers on. I think that's obviously if this horse was 3-1, I would just keep rolling the PPs, but I think those are some angles that you can look for. Same goes for his other entry, Great Samurai, who ran well off the turf last time out. But if you go back into his other races against maiden special weight on the turf, he's been running pretty good, but you have to trust an 0 for 12 maiden. However, in his 6 turf starts, he's placed second 3 times. So I think this one getting back to the turf is interesting at 8-1 with Jose Ortiz. Do you really want the leading jockey to knock you out at $16? I don't know. And I think one of the horses I'll mention here is number 4, Cafe Blanco. Has the bug boy and Hector Diaz here. Not the biggest fan. George Weaver only has 1 win from 45 starts. And that winner was eventually put in a stakes race, I believe, on the Friday before Belmont, ran 4th or so. So obviously this barn is very cold as well. But this one ran behind a horse, Smarty's Pal, that I'm very familiar with, who went wire to wire with Kendrick Carmouche. Wasn't pressured at all. Like we said, we see that all the time on the turf. And this one made a strong run late. So I think if you want to spread, those are some horses you can add. I'm 3 deep here, and I'm going to use the 7 Kierland. That's my top selection here. I'm going to go to Captain Kit, who just missed by a neck against this company last time out. I think 5-1 is reasonable price there. This one has raced against stronger in the past here, so I think this one's coming into his own here. 4th start as a 5-year-old. There's another angle, Steve, I know you talk often about, and that's older horses running against younger. So hopefully we can click on that, and I'll throw in Mr. Messina as I have a statistic here. Bill Mott, 25%, 50% in the money, going dirt to turf, maiden special weight to maiden claimers here. So I'm 7-9-11, hoping to cash. Like I mentioned, in the ticket where whether I single Rubelinda or not, I will be going much deeper in this race, trying to catch a price, hopefully alive for an Allburger. We'll see if what the weather holds up. Hopefully this one stays on the grass, so we can get those big prices in. And I will just mention one more horse who would have to come off the also eligible list, and that's number 14, Awesome Anthony, for Jimmy Ryerson, Manny Franco. 2 back. I was very impressed with this one's start, and even 3 back running behind Yummy Bear, who took a while for Orlando Rice, but was a 4-year-old that day, facing younger in April. And usually, March and April at Aqueduct is when you see those older horses beating younger horses. Last out was 4 wide, weak and late. I think if this one draws in, you can also include. But Steve, I'm 7-9-11 here. Who are you going? I know you're going deep here, so who are you going with?
Yeah. Again, on my tickets where I am singling Robelinda, I'm hitting the all button. I know some players look down on that. You know what? There is no better feeling, and I know we've been there. There is no better feeling when you are live going to that last leg with the all button. You can sit back, relax, and just try to figure out not if you're going to win, but how much you're going to win. Tickets that I'm going to have, I really want to look at the number 2. Wondermeister. One of the angles I do like, and we're not going to get a big price on this horse, but one of the angles I do like in these type of races, those trouble trips, those bad starts, because what happens if and when they finally do get out of the gate. Again, Ortiz, you don't want to lose with him. So I am including the 2. We mentioned the 7. We're hoping that we see this horse alone coming down the stretch. If that is, we're going to cash some big tickets. I have the 7. I also include the 8 with Ortiz. Again, I'm not crazy that he's had all these opportunities and hasn't had a chance to really cash that check. But you know what? I'm not going to get knocked out by him. You mentioned Captain Kit. Raji, very, very good rider on the turf. I much rather him on the turf than the dirt. Again, another older horse going against younger horses, definitely a little more mature than some of these other runners. I can definitely see him making some noise at a decent price. I'm going to throw, and a lot of times when I hit that Allberg, sometimes that favorite comes in. I hope I don't get, chalked out this time. But I am going to include the 10 and the 11 just because I don't want them to knock me out of what could be a decent ticket. And you mentioned also eligible. I am interested in the 15 with Castellano. I think the horse can improve the addition of blinkers. First time out on a little bit of the soft turf, was steady. After that, I had to go 5 wide. He's probably going to have to go wide again in a 15 post. But again, I don't want him to knock me out if I am alive. Most of my tickets that I am singled, I'm going to hit the all button. But if you're asking me who's going to be on my 8 tickets, I'm really 2, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11.
So, Steve, give us your ticket one more time from races 7 to 10, and just recap the total price here that hopefully the players can punch these tickets and hopefully cash alongside us.
So I'm going with a $27 ticket. First leg, we're going 6, 9, 10. We're going to try to get Rubelinda home in the second leg. In the third leg, we're going 6, 7, 8. And if we're alive going to the last, we're going to hope for some big prices. We'll go 2, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11.
Awesome, and I have a $42 pick 4 ticket here. So race 7, we're going to go, this is the spread race for me. We'll go 1, 2, 4, who is my top selection, 6, 8, 9, 10. In the 8th race, the Rubelinda race, I will probably single on backup tickets and try to catch the Allburger, but I feel pretty confident about this one. I also want to get Lowell involved as well. So I'm 2-6 in the 8th race. In the 9th race, my top pick Converge, the 8-horse for Chad Brown, and I'll also throw in the 12. And then to close it out, Steve and I are both on the 7-horse at 15-1. That's my top selection. And I'll also be using the 9 and the 11, and that's the $42 ticket. So, Steve, hopefully we are alive for some big ones here. Hopefully the rain doesn't throw us off the turf too much, because you can definitely make some money in this pick 4 sequence. Even if Rubalinda comes in, I think this one can still pay anywhere between 500 to 1,000 and possibly even more. It's especially with this maiden claiming a race to close it out here. So I definitely think the value is here. I'm glad we looked over the sequence here. Originally, we're going back and forth. Did we want to talk about the pick 5 or the pick 4? The pick 5 to me came up a little bit chalky. And there weren't the best of horses running in there. So I definitely think we found a sequence where we can definitely make some cash and hopefully have a good start to the as we venture in to the ending weeks of Belmont Park as we gear up to Saratoga. Maybe we'll have some bankroll to put aside for us.
Get ready for Saratoga.
We're all ready. So that will do it for this edition of Turning for Home. I'd like to thank our guest one more time, Steven Schwartz. You can find him on Twitter at Al Bundy, Poke High. Like I said, one of the biggest guys I respect from a NYRA circuit perspective. And really, to me, I only play NYRA guys, and I notice, every morning, whenever I put out picks, I always have to double check with Steve. We always go back and forth in text, say, hey, what do we like here? Am I missing something here? And I think that's very important for handicappers. Even if you know a few guys on social media, pick their brains. If you have any questions, Steve, I know you've been a big help for me. And I know we go back and forth, so don't be afraid to pick other guys' brains who have shown to do well on the NYRA circuit.
Absolutely. I learned just as much from you as I learned from anyone else. And most importantly, what you do for the game is greatly appreciated, especially the NYRA tracks. And again, things happen. And one of the things I love about the late pick 4 is that we really get 5 or 6 races to see how really the day is going. And we can always adjust. And I think the important thing, especially with Twitter, is being able to talk, really feel out other handicappers, get each other's thoughts. And yes, you're going to hold true to your main plays. But when we throw out a 15-1 shot like we did in the last race, and you realize you look at your ticket and you don't have that 7, he may not be a top pick, but when you hear a person such as you, and I know I'm on this horse, you don't want this horse to knock you out of a big payday. So I really think it's important, especially for the game, to really pick each other's brains and really understand why horses win and why they don't.
For sure. And like you mentioned, I am, definitely excited for this 15-1 shot to close it out. If I'm playing some of the smaller tickets, I'm talking maybe like a $10 ticket with 2 singles there. I'll probably single this one, just to say I had some balls to do it. Really think we can get this one home. So, Steve, once again, thank you for coming out. And everybody else playing this weekend, good luck, guys.
Yep. Pleasure's mine. Let's get them.
Let's go get them. As Mark DiLorenzo says, giddy up. You can't end the show without it. He would probably hunt me down if I didn't say it. The guy's a lunatic, but also a good follow. All right, so good luck, guys, and we'll see you soon.